فتى إلا لي لا سيف إلا ذو الفقار لا فتى إلا لي لا.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today in tradition 28 from the Commander of the Faithful, we want to look at the topic of the best struggle or the best jihad. Now, right away when people hear the word jihad, they tend to think of people with guns or swords on a battlefield killing and shooting and murdering people. And indeed, there is an Islamic aspect of jihad, of a struggle, of a military struggle. But today that is not our topic of discussion. Today we want to look at the spiritual struggle as it has been envisioned within the tradition from the Commander of the Faithful. Before we go into the explanation, let us look at the words of the tradition that we want to reflect upon for today. And the Imam says the following: there is nothing more admirable than struggle, jihad. And the greatest of all struggles is the struggle against the passions and the lower desires. Within the Islamic ethos of teachings that comes to us from the Quran, the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, and his infallible successors, we have this understanding that the jihad, the struggle, is of two types. We have the very famous saying where the Messenger of Allah was in Medina, in the city of Medina, and a group of his military soldiers was returning back home from a battle where they had fought, they had killed, they were killed, they had casualties. And as they enter into the city, the Messenger of Allah engages with them and he says to them, congratulations to that community who have just completed the minor struggle while the major struggle is still in front of them. Now the companions, these brave soldiers who had just returned from a war, they would have been perplexed, and they were perplexed, I'm sure, of what does the Prophet mean? We've just fought in the battle, we've been killed, we've lost our comrades, we have injuries. How can that be a minor struggle? And the Prophet mentioned, he clarified his statement. He says that yes, that which you did on the battlefield is a minor struggle. It is the Jihadul Asghar. But he said the major struggle is to conquer the passion, the lower desires that an individual has. And this is exactly what the Commander of the Faithful, Imam Ali, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, tells us in this tradition, that the most admirable struggle a person can have is against his or her passions and lower desires. Because we have many passions that we have within us. We have the power, the desire, the wish, the longing to be leaders of our society. And sometimes a person may have that desire and he or she will do anything that they can, legal or illegally, to get to that status. They would kill, they would murder, they would plunder, they would pillage, even kill their own family to gain power within a society. But to have the desire for power and to control it and to struggle against that desire and to attain it through legal means is where the greater struggle comes in. We know that God has created all of us, male and female alike, with a desire for the opposite gender. We can either go out non-stop and do what we want with anybody within our society, with no thoughts and no concept of any ramifications that they may have, or we can control our lusts, our passions, our desires for the opposite gender, and ensure that we use this God-given power in ways which He would be permitted, which He would permit, and that the infallibles would be happy with us to perform. And so, again, to control our desires of the opposite gender, we have to struggle against the self, against what it may want us to do. And similar are many other aspects of the life of the human being, that we have a lot of wishes and wants and desires that we want to attain, and we can either attain it through illicit, illegal means within limits of not following the limits of the Islamic ethos, or we can follow Islamic teachings and get to those same goals and desires but through a permissible option. And this is what the Commander of the Faithful is showing us in this tradition today, that the greatest of struggles that we can have is to work to attain what we desire, but through the legitimate means, through struggling with the self, through conquering the ego, the self, the nafs, whatever you call it, to conquer the self and to attain the pleasure of Allah and to follow in the footsteps of the Prophet and his noble teachings. And so we ask Allah on this day that He gives us all the ability to follow such traditions, to conquer the self, to kill the self, so to speak, to kill the ego, to kill the desire and lust that we have, and to channel all of our energies in that which would please Allah, the Prophet, and his noble family. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali.
سيف الله ذو الفقار لا فتى إلا يلينا سيف الله ذو الفقار لا فتى إلا يلينا سيف الله ذو الفقار لا فتى